your mark, get set, go!
Summer fun means swimming. But before you dive in, stop and think. Let's see what you're really diving into. Along with all the fish and plants we know are down there, there's even more life at the microscopic level. And these guys pack a big punch. You see, there's lots of stuff like bacteria and pollutants that end up in our waters. So you ask, where does all this bad stuff come from? Well, there are those sources that usually get the bad rap, like sewage treatment plants. But there's stuff we don't think about. Stuff that's harder to put your finger on and more difficult to control. There's the natural stuff, like stuff that comes from cows and horses and birds. Ew. And then there's the not-so-natural stuff, like pesticides and fertilizers. And then all the other stuff that rainwater carries into our lakes and streams and rivers, like oil and antifreeze. All of this stuff can make a body of water sick. And when a body of water isn't healthy, bacteria grows and grows and grows. Ponds with stagnant water, that's water that doesn't circulate, are especially easy targets. The problem is that bacteria can make you sick. And if you have other health problems, bacteria can kill. So, how does bacteria affect you? Funny you should ask. You see, we all have these areas of our bodies that bacteria latch onto more easily than others. These areas are called mucous membranes. Our nose, mouth, and eyes just love to entertain bacteria. Oh, bacteria, you're so delightful to see you this evening. Oh, thank you, Nigel. You know all the wonderful things to say. And if you have an opened wound, you know, a cut, why, it just shouts out for that bacteria to come and party. Go bacteria, go bacteria, go bacteria, talk about. Bacteria, talk about. Bacteria. We're speaking with Mr. Glenn Buckley of the Sam Houston Area Council, Boy Scouts of America. Mr. Buckley, I see that you have a recreation area there for canoeing and skiing. What about the risk of bacteria?
We take bacteria in the water very seriously here. We don't want any of our kids to get stomach aches or other sickness, so we monitor the water very carefully.
And how do you monitor water?
Now, we sample and analyze the water here regularly, but we'll be increasing our bacterial monitoring to a more regular schedule, and that's especially after it rains.
Why especially after it rains?
As rainwater flows over the ground, into the ditches, into the streams, and finally into our area lakes, the water picks up different contaminants along the way, such as bacteria from humans and other animals, as well as other sources of pollution.
Ah, I see. Contaminants. Ah, thank you, sir.
Well, thank you.
Aside from bacteria, there's often other junk that we can't see from the surface. Now, officially, this junk is called underwater obstructions. To explain underwater obstructions, junk, we're speaking with Miss Jean Wright of the Galveston County Health District. Miss Wright, could you please explain what you mean by underwater obstructions?
Underwater obstructions are natural things like rocks or old tree stumps. Unnatural underwater obstructions include all the other garbage that ends up in our waterways. This garbage ranges from glass containers to rotting pier pilings to lost boat propellers or even the entire boat. All of this can be found lurking just below the surface of the water.
What advice do you have for our viewers today?
First of all, never swim alone. Second, swim only in waters designated safe for swimming. And third, never, never, never jump or dive into a body of water that you are not completely familiar with. The consequences can be tragic.
Yes, tragic. Injuries can range from cuts to broken bones to head injuries or worse. Thank you, Ms. Wright. Well, we've been given a lot to think about. But before we go, there's still one more serious issue we should discuss. We're talking with Mike Pugh of the Harris County Health Department. Mr. Pugh, Would you talk with us a bit about drowning?
Well, drowning can occur in about any body of water. Not knowing how to swim, boating without the proper life-saving equipment, and not having lifeguards or adequate adult supervision can spell disaster at any time.
But I understand that natural bodies of water, like rivers and lakes, can present additional drowning hazards.
Yes, there are two major hazards. The first is the uneven bottom. As someone walks out into the water, there are often holes or pits in the ground. Stepping off into one of these can surprise even the most experienced swimmer.
You said that there were two major hazards.
Yes, and the second is currents. In swift-moving rivers, it's easy to slip and be carried downstream. And in the Gulf of Mexico and other large bodies of water, undertows and riptides cause an average of 70 drownings in the Houston-Galveston area each year. Even the strongest of swimmers is often unable to overcome these forceful currents.
So what's your advice for our viewers?
Only swim in areas that are designated safe for swimming. Don't take unnecessary risk and go into deep water. Make sure there's always a lifeguard or responsible adult watching at all times. And most importantly, never swim alone, so there's always someone available to get help.
Thank you, sir. Wow, that's a lot of information. But here's the basic message. To keep yourself healthy and swimming year after year, know what you're jumping into. Now, where's my dinosaur? Ah, Terry, what are you doing over there? Come here and help me. Here, taste this. Looks good, doesn't it? Terry, what happened? Oh my goodness.